I guess it starts, my musical thing starts, I grew up in a musical family. My great-grandfather, he played music. He was a fiddle player. He used to come in after he had a garbage business, and he would come in after the route and dust off the ashes that's when they used to burn trash, and go and sit in with all these jazz guys and stuff. And then my dad also played in a band. When he was in high school, he played in high school band also. He was a trumpet player. Had a pretty big blues band in the 60s. It was called Band X. They used to play a lot of street dances and colleges and stuff. And, his big thing was they played at the State Fair and opened for the Beach Boys. Met Brian Wilson. I always thought that was a really cool story. He always used to tell us before he had all of us kids, and he was coming home from a gig one night, and he had took over for the garbage business from my grandpa, and he ended up almost driving over the side of a bridge because he fell asleep because he did his route at like 3 in the morning and had a gig that night and got done with the gig and came home to do his route, and he fell asleep at the wheel and woke up with half of the cab was hanging over the side, and he was luckily able to stop and not go over and die. And that's when he said, something's got to give, and that's when he kind of he gave up playing music so he could be there for all of us. Yeah, so all of our holidays and Christmases and birthdays and stuff, when we'd go over to my dad's parents' house, my uncle also played, my Uncle Mike. He also played music. My cousin Mitzi, she played music too. So at the end of every dinner, we'd all sit around, and it was a small family, that side was. And we would always sit around and play music, and they all wrote their own songs, or they played songs from other people. First time they had me get up, I was playing trumpet in school band in grade school, and I wouldn't get up in front of everybody. I had to go into a bedroom and play a song, and while they were out in the other room listening. And my grandma told me, never be ashamed. You're surrounded by a whole family of musicians, so don't ever be ashamed to play your music in front of us, no matter how bad it is. So that gave me a little inspiration there. And when I was in 4th grade, my Uncle Mike brought me a guitar. He came over to the house and brought me the guitar up, and he got something for you, and sat me down and taught me a few chords. And I messed around with it for a little while, and I was still playing trumpet in school band. I did that through junior high school till 8th grade. And in 8th grade, I started playing, taking guitar lessons from Guitar World shop here in town in Normal. Jim Bland was the owner, and my guitar teacher was John Evans. Great guy, cool guy. He played in a band called Dallas McGee, and they were kind of famous in their own route. I believe they toured like Canada at one time. I'm not sure if John was in the band there, but I know they did some tours around and played around here. Anyway, John, I took lessons from John for a couple of years, playing and helping me with my timing and I was a pretty good rhythm player. Still am a really good rhythm player. And then 8th grade, we played the talent show. I had a friend of mine that I used to hang out with. His name was Kevin Link. And Kevin Link's going to be an important person in the story for the beginning of my musical journey, because I don't think I would have started playing in a band if I never met Kevin Link. We used to go over to his house. He had drums. Me and my friend Nick Murray, later became a bass player for a couple different bands. And we used to go over to his house, and he could play along with any record that we put on. He could play the exact drum beat too. He was awesome. He was an awesome drummer. And in the 8th grade, we did the talent show, and we did Quiet Riot's Mental Health. And it was funny. They made this banner from these old computers, that printed out mental health, bang your head. And it was like across the stage in the auditorium. They brought it out, and we actually just air banded. We had instruments, and was lip syncing. It was total cheese. But the coolest thing about it was Kevin actually played guitar, played drums along with the track. So it was almost like it was real, but it gave me that first taste of being in front of a full auditorium of people and really want to play. I mean, because I played guitar at that time, but there was no way in hell I could play, Quiet Riot stuff then. I was 11 or 12 and just started to learn. But it was fun. We had a great time. So we started thinking we wanted to start a band. So we hung out all freshman year, and then later on freshman year I met Todd Phoenix, and Nick had already been playing bass for a while. He played in my Peoria Symphony Orchestra, and in school he did bass. Really great bass player. So Nick came in a little bit later to the band. Jeff Hirsch was the first bass player for Armageddon. We started that in the summer before sophomore year. We spent all summer long trying to figure out what kind of band we wanted to do. So we watched every day. We watched Song Remains the Same, Spinal Tap, and the Ultimate Revenge tour, which was Slayer, Venom, and Exodus. And we watched those tapes every day that summer. And then by the end of the summer, we decided what kind of band we wanted to be. We wanted to kind of mold all three of those together somehow, and we became Armageddon. And we messed around, learning, some Black Sabbath, some Metallica, and this was 1984, 1985. And tried to write a couple of our own songs. And then a few months later, Nick Murray joined the band. It was me, Nick Murray, Todd Phoenix, Jimmy Chamberlain, and Kevin Link on drums. Getting back to Kevin, because I'm like, I know a drummer, and they're like, well, I know this guy that plays guitar, and we're like, hey, cool, I can try to sing, because I was big, and still am a big Ozzy fanatic. So we started that band, started writing our own stuff, and playing Metallica, Merciful Fate, Venom, Motorhead, Exodus, Slayer, Twisted Sister. We did Under the Blade, and again a lot of our own stuff. And that was a really cool time, learning the progression of writing and hanging out. And it kept us all out of a lot of trouble too, because that's all we ever did. We were still getting drunk and getting fucked up, but we were doing it at at band practice. We weren't out running the streets. Well, some of us were, but it did help keep us out of a lot of trouble, because some of us were pretty fucked up kids, and whatever, you do what you did. It was a different time back then. But that was cool. And then summer of 86, 87, we recorded our first album. Armageddon did. This thing up here, that was recorded in Kankakee, Illinois, in the studio. A friend of ours named Rick Miller, he kind of grew up around that area, moved to Bloomington. I met him my sophomore year. Knew a guy up there that had a studio and gave us a rate on it. So we drove up there and we had, put together our songs, practiced the hell out of them so we could get in there and record them. We knew what we were going to do. And we got that done. And with us doing recording up there, this guy knew these guys that owned a juice bar. Now, juice bars were a thing in like the 80s where, you could go and they didn't sell alcohol. If you're underage, they had like, video games and pool tables and, shit like that. A place for kids to go, like a rec center, but it looks like a bar. And they were kind of creepy places, some of them that we played. But one, so these guys booked us and a band out of Peoria called Leviathan. We had done some shows with Leviathan before that. We actually did a show a few months prior to that when we did our first show. We did our first show and it was like March of '87, something like that. It was at a club called Dancers. It was another juice bar. It was here in Normal, owned by a guy named Charlie Profile and Scott Riddle. And when we cut our demo tape, I had a graphic arts teacher in high school who offered to help us record our demo. And he came over to our practice space and we recorded our demo. And I found out where these guys lived that owned the bar, the juice bar, and I took them over our demo and they listened to it and they're like, I don't know if I give you guys a gig or not, but we'll rent out the building to you for a day. And I'm like, well, how much you want for that to happen? He's like, $250. And like, to me, it was like back in like 1986, 87, $250 is a lot of money. I mean, it is still today to me. But I asked my graphic arts teacher, I'm like, hey, we're trying to get this money up. Would you let me print tickets as like extra credit? He's like, yeah, definitely. So he let me print up tickets for the show. We sold enough tickets to get the money to rent the building. And then we had the show. It was us, Naked Hippie, which is, I'm going to touch on Naked Hippie later. I met Chase and Clay, who eventually came on to play in Master Fist with me. It was us, Armageddon, Naked Hippie, and a college band called Constant Vomit. A punk rock band. Naked Hippie was a punk rock band, and we were a metal band. And so that marks the first metal punk crossover show in Bloomington Normal. We all used to hang out at this club. This was like in 86, 87. There was a club downtown, underground club downtown Bloomington called Hell. And a friend of ours, Jeff Warren, he had a band called Nameless Dread. And they used to play there, like Nameless Dread and 16 October and a bunch of other different bands, punk rock kind of bands. And they would have parties there on the weekend. They were like Wesleyan students or ISU students that we'd go and hang out and party, and we met a lot of other people at our age that would go down there from all around Bloomington Normal. They're either metalheads or punk rockers, skaters and stuff. So we all hung out and had our own little community, and we all did shows together. Like ended up, like us, Naked Hippie, Semi-Sids, 13 Frightened Girls, all those bands came from that era, and that was a a really, really cool time to be alive around here because there wasn't shit else to do. That was pretty fun. I met a lot of great players at that time and had a lot of different cool playing experiences as well too. So we get through high school. At the end of high school, that's when Armageddon kind of tears off. We're done. We did a couple. We did one album, and then we started recording the next album. And we kind of fizzed out a little bit, and I kind of went off on like a 2-year acid trip from an accident at a party. I had a sheet in my pocket. Someone spilled beer on me, and I took it out, shook it. It kind of all absorbed into my hand, and I was pretty fucked up for a while. So when I came out of that haze, me and Nick Murray, the bass player from Armageddon, we started a band called Liquid Eyeball, which was mostly original stuff, and we did some covers. Like we used to do really early Pink Floyd stuff, Sid Barrett Pink Floyd. We did Floyd, Flaming Lips, Jane's Addiction, and mostly original stuff. Mostly played like parties on campus. We were like the house band at the Inferno. We would play parties. Our big thing was we did a Pink Floyd medley. We started out with Interstellar Overdrive, and then do like a Space Jam transition into Astronomy Donomy, and then another space, then back into and end with Interstellar. Or sometimes we'd start it off with the Nile song into Interstellar. It ended up being like a 20-minute just fuck off of just pure psychotic, psychedelic stuff. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and it drew a lot of people from the party scene on campus and around. Always did a few bar shows. After that, we recorded an album. That was in like 1990, 1990. That album came out. 1991, I would say. And a good mix of tunes. Kind of folky, kind of bluesy, kind of just melancholy shit all around. If you just threw everything in a blender, that's what Liquid Eyeballs came up to be. Just whatever it was on anybody's mind. There was really no particular genre. One could be a metal one could be a funk, jazzy kind of thing. We just didn't really care. We just put together songs and had a good time. And we did that, and that lasted for a couple of years. It was we had fun. We played around town. We played OK's Corral in Madison, Wisconsin. We played, over Peoria, Champaign, around the area. Fun stuff. That band that had Brian Kuhar on guitar, Nick Murray on bass, Mike Smith on the drums, and myself on guitar, vocals. And that was a really cool way of coming out of that haze to get all that psychedelic stuff that was stuck in my head out to write some cool stuff like that. At the end of Liquid Eyeball, those guys that graduated college and moved away, which I kind of figured that's what's going to happen. I grew up around here. I just figured I'd find some new players to play with. I would go out to bars. We started playing in bars when I was like 15 years old. So even when we was in high school, I would just go back to the clubs that we played at, the night before, and the bartenders and the doormen would remember us. They're like, hey, you're those guys, you played in that band, you know. They're like, come on in, you know. And then, you know, nobody ever asked for ID because we were the guys in the band. So if we wanted to go watch other bands play, we would just kind of just schmooze into these clubs that we played at or hung out with these people that would. And so I would go out and scout and see what people were listening to, what all the bands in the clubs were playing. I go out and see bands like, this is 80s around here, so like, you know, Leather Teddy, Machine Gun Kelly, or Hanover Fist, Accomplice, Rick Bradford. He got me into a club one night when he saw me. I was watching Leather Teddy from the parking lot in a car wash, and then Rick saw me sitting over on my car by myself, and he's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, watching the band. He's like, well, why don't you come in? I'm like, I can't. I'm not 21. He's like, fuck that. He's like, go to the door. I'll meet you at the door and just have $5 in your hand and ask if the band was any better than the band it was last night. And just, I'll be standing right there. And he was right there when I came in. Dude just let me in. And, you know, so I got to go in and watch them guys with him. I was like, appreciated that out of him, you know. It made me feel like, hey, I'm in with the cool kids, you know. But what I was finding out when I was watching these bands, they all had the similar set list that everybody was playing. And so I wanted my next group to be different for something else, you know, that people my age would maybe want to hear. Since I was the youngest one, I'm coming in with the older crowd. And it's when me and Shason Clay from Naked Hippie started Master Fister. Master Fister originally had Brian Kuhar, who played guitar in Liquid Eyeball. He played bass in Master Fister. Then we had Neil on guitar and Chad Merritt on the drums. And me on vocals. We started out playing, writing our own music, of course, in the vein of Black Sabbath and Trouble, Merciful Fate, stuff like that are our influences. And so most of our stuff was, I would say, was like 80% originals to 20% covers. A lot of the players at the time, when we were ready to come out, were like, you guys won't be able to book, in these mainstream clubs playing your own stuff. Nobody's gonna want to listen to original stuff. Like, put us on a bill opening for you guys and see, so people can, see what we're about, And we went out and we proved them wrong. You can play original music. You can go out. This was in the early 90s where everything was cover bands, and we went out and we did it, and we built a pretty nice following of people that would come out and see us, and we broke into all those clubs that said that you could never play original music in those clubs. It wasn't the best original music, but people got where we were coming from, and I'd say we had the balls to go out and do it. So, that's, anybody can sit and talk shit about somebody all day long, but unless you want to step up and take it to the stage, I don't want to hear about it. So, we did that, and we had some more personnel changes. Before we had some personnel changes, we recorded our first album. This was after Brian, well, actually, it was after some personnel changes. Brian and Mike had left, and we replaced with Chad Merritt on drums, and Ken Brown became our bass player. And then we recorded our first album. We recorded that in 1994. And went out and played a bunch of shows. We opened up for Rain Dance, the MTV Real World band from the first season. We opened up for them guys at ISU. we thought that was hilarious that they asked us, because we were like the doomiest of doom fucking metal. They're playing all our own shit, and they're like, hey, would you want to play with this pop fucking rock band that's on MTV? And we met them. They were nice guys, but it was the first time any of us had ever been into a green room, and they were like kind of a big deal. They were on this like tour, and they had like all their shit. You know, they brought us, the people from ISU brought us into the green room, and like, okay, don't touch any of this stuff over here, because those 6 Snapples there, that's for the singer. He wants the apple Snapple and all this shit. And we're like, okay, we won't. We're like fucking taking drinks out their shit, putting it back, and eating their food. We're just, you know, typical fucking hoodlum metalheads fucking up shit, getting away with it. Played that show. I was running by, I don't know, 300 or 400 people. That was fun. I'm pretty sure they didn't know what to think of us, but, you know, hey, we went out and did it and did our thing. You know, it was fun. We did that show, and then played a few more, and had another personnel change. Neil left. We got Gary Hopkins on the drums. Gary was the drummer for Accomplice, Sticky Wicket, a bunch of bands from the area. Great player. And I think when we got Gary and after Neil left, that's when we started forming and gelling better together with our songwriting. Our songs got a lot tighter. The hooks were there a lot better, and we were able to put together stuff a lot more easier, because we all just really gelled together really well. Having a solid rhythm section in your band really helps that. With Kenny on the bass, and Kenny he's an awesome player, a fucking even better fucking songwriter. You know, I always said he was my musical soulmate, because me and him and Chasen could write really great songs together. So we did an EP at Eclipse Studios, the old Eclipse, when it was down on the west side of the ghetto. We did a 5-song EP with Gary in the band, Kenny, Chasen, and it saddens me because I don't have a copy of that. That's the one piece of music that I don't have, or of recording that I don't have. I found live versions of some of the songs on there, but I just don't have a copy of that. So if anybody that's watching this, if you have a copy of the 5 songs from Master Fister that was on a gold disc, let me know, because I'd like a copy. One of those songs off that EP, I believe, was on Corey Pyle's Locomotive Volume 1. And there was a song on there called Into the Sun. And that was always one of my favorite songs we did. And that was a really cool thing Corey did at the time. So, yeah, we did that EP, and then after that came out, we got to open up for a lot of nationals after that. Buddies of ours were promoting shows. The first national that we opened for was Pat Travers. We opened up for him at Scotty's here in Flemington. Then after Pat, the next one was Slaughter. Well, it was Rain Dance. And then we opened for Slaughter. It was us, Taxi War Dance, and Slaughter. And had a blast doing that show. Taxi fucking killed it as well. They're a fucking great band. Talbot, Skinny, and Bella. All great guys. We did a bunch of shows with them guys whenever they would come over here. They worked with Clay and Lori, was booking shows. Spooky Pickle Productions. We played with Blue Oyster Cult. That was at Nick's Ivanhoe. That was a really fun show. There was, I don't know, maybe 400 people crammed in that place. But it was kind of unnerving because we got there, we have 3 hours worth of material. The club owner comes up to me and asks, I said, hey, how long the set you guys got? Or how much material do you have? I said, well, we have like 3 hours worth of material. And he's like, well, good, because they don't want to go on until 9:30, and I got the show billed and starting at 7:30. I'm like, well, that's cool and all, but I don't think nobody wants to hear the opening band play for 2 hours, you know. But you know, we'll go out and play for a while until we feel we're losing them, you know. But we held it together. We ended up playing, I don't know, maybe an hour and 20 minutes or something. And I go and look over my right shoulder towards the last. We got 2 more songs, and I see my right shoulder. I see Buck Dharma and the drummer standing on the edge of the stage watching our last few songs. And I thought, wow, man, that's really cool. And they stayed and watched, and came up and he shook my hand and told me, great set at the end of that show. And that made me feel really awesome because I've always been a huge Blue Oyster Cult fan. That day at Soundcheck, when we got there, I said, they're like, where's the singer at? And I'm like, right here. And he's like, okay, where are you going to be on the stage? And I looked for the shortest mic stand on the stage, and I said, that's Buck's mic, isn't it? He's like, yep. I'm like, I'm singing through that motherfucker right there. He's like, all right. So I got to sing through Buck's mic that night. That was awesome as well. And then we played with Molly Hatchet, Brian Howe, from the singer from Bad Company. That was at the Malibu Bay Lounge in Urbana. It was a strip club. And once a year on Father's Day, they do a benefit concert there. So that was kind of cool, you know, like in between sets, we'd go in and get a lap dance and then come back out, watch the show or whatever. So that was fun. So we recorded the Third Prophecy album with Gary and Shason and Kenny. We did that at Sine Wave Studios with Ed Pierce. Lost Horizon Records had put up the money for that album to put out. They had a distribution deal with a few labels. They had another band on their roster that got picked up for distribution as well, called Cyanide. They started giving us shit about our name. They're like, you know, the name seems kind of offensive, Master Fister. And I'm like, look at these other bands like Jack Off Jill and Pissing Razors, and you guys are, you know, giving me shit about Master Fister. I'm like, what? No, there's going to be no name change. We're just going to keep it. That summer that album came out, I ran into a friend of mine, Bill Rizzoli, who was putting together a benefit show for the Glenn Buxton family. Glenn Buxton was the original guitar player in the original Alice Cooper band. And he had passed away, and Bill was friends with Alice's personal assistant and friends with Michael Bruce and those guys in the Michael Bruce group was going to play this benefit. It was in Clarion, Iowa, which is about, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours away from here. And another band from this area was supposed to go and play it, and they bailed on it at the last minute. And I told Bill, it's like, hell yeah, I've been a big Alice Cooper fan my whole life. Some of the music actually saved my life at certain times. And hell yeah, anything I could do. So we went and we played with the Michael Bruce group. Michael was the guitar player in the original Alice Cooper band. Alright, Clarion, Iowa. We get there. I get to meet some of my childhood fucking, these are legends of my childhood. I grew up with these guys. Their posters on my wall. And I meet Neil Smith and Dennis Dunaway and Michael Bruce. And there was a little record shop that was across the street from this place that we played at. And Clarion, Iowa is a really, 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 really small town. I'm really surprised that they even had a record store in that town. That's how small it was. Like one of these places that had like a post office, a bar, and a church. That's about it. And I think that bar was the town's place for entertainment, but that's where the Buxton family was from, and that's where he was buried, was in Clarion. And we helped. The money that benefit was to buy Glenn tombstone. Alice chipped in on it, and the money that we helped bring in. So happy to say and honored that I was part of that for the family. The tombstone looked like the School's Out album cover, which was fucking pretty cool. And we get there and meet those guys. The first autograph I've ever asked for in my life was for one of my favorite Alice Cooper albums. It's up here, the Pretty's For You album. And that's got Neil and Michael's autograph. I was standing in line and I'm holding it like this with my head down, and Neil says to me, he says, "Hey man, how's it going?" And I said, could you sign my record? Because I'd never asked for an autograph from anybody, and to me it was just like, he's like, "It's okay, man, here." He signed it. And then he found out, I was playing in the band that night, and we go in, and there was a local band that was opening, or we were using their PA and their drums. And Kenny, let me tell you about this drum set. This guy had fucking triggers on a Sears Roebuck kit. The biggest piece of shit drum kit you'll ever imagine. And he thought he was the fucking bee's knees. And I'm not trying to be a dick, but it was just fucking hilarious. That we're all like, what? Why are the triggers on that? I mean, and Gary my drummer didn't want the triggers on there. So he actually took the time to actually tune this kit up properly, how it should be tuned, and made it. One thing about Gary, he was a great player, hard hitter, but he could tune any kit and make them sound like $1 million fucking dollars. He had a great ear for that. And after we played our set, that's when the Michael Bruce band was going to get up. And then there was a jam with Neil and Dennis, and Michael played songs. But Neil got up at Neil Smith, after we got done, he was just like floored. He said, "Man, you guys were fucking great." And he said, "I cannot believe you made that fucking drum set sound that fucking good." I get hired at I-97, the local rock radio station. I had my own on-air gig on Saturdays from noon to 6 from 99 to 2001. Was doing that and playing in the band. And in 99 they did the Glenn Buxton Memorial Weekend again. But this year it was at Cooperstown in Phoenix, Arizona, at Alice Cooper's bar / restaurant. Young with Dave Mustaine and Randy Johnson, baseball player. And they asked us back. They wanted us to come and play again. The Buxton family asked us to come back. and Bill and those guys, they wanted us to get to Phoenix. So I told a story like we were a real rock and roll band like for one weekend. We flew out in the airplane. The limo got us at the airport and took us back to the hotel. At the hotel there was a meet and greet that night. Neil and Dennis and Michael were there, and all the other bands and musicians from all around the world. There's guys from Sweden that came in that were big Alice Cooper fans that wanted to play, and a lot of bands that played were just doing it just to play for free. And this year Alice agreed to play, but it was a really special night because that was the first time in 25 years that the original Alice Cooper band had played on the same stage together. And so that was pretty awesome to be a part of that, and to play with one of my favorite bands of all time at Alice's bar for a private party, no less. Being invited and being these guys that and so we walk up and I see Neil, me and Gary. We were walking up and Neil sees us and he yells at us. He's like, "Matt, Gary," and I'm like, "Stop!" He's like, "What?" I'm like, "This is just fucking with me. I mean, I grew up with you guys' posters on my wall, and here you all are just calling us out. Like it was really cool to be treated as an equal." 6 on the Retirement Sucks tour, I roadied for Ozzy Osbourne. It was here. I was got on with the local stagehand here, worked the show. It was Ozzy, Typo, and Sepultura, which is pretty awesome fucking bill, if you ask me. One of my job duties that day was to follow the lighting guy around. We placed, or the video guy, excuse me. So I knew where every camera was placed all around that arena, and I put the steps on that got on and off the stage, so I knew where the band was getting on and off the stage. And Ozzy's monitors rig, set that up. That's when I found out that he has 2 monitors just for lyrics. So I was heartbroken, but I do the same thing now too. So I'm getting old and I can't remember all his words. And I was like, "You wrote these words; they're your fucking words. You can't remember them." But so we had a 10 o'clock dock call off of that, and everybody's waiting at the dock for them to get done so we can start loading the trucks. I'm like, "Fuck that! He's got 20 more minutes." So I went back to the steps. So I'm standing at the back of the stage while they're doing the last 3 songs. And I'm looking all around the arena, seeing everybody point at me, giving me the finger, like, "Fuck you, man, you're back there, how the fuck?" I'm holding up my tag, my worker. And then show's over, and then the drummer comes off the stage, Joe Holmes comes off the stage, Michael Gordon, the drummer, Trulio, who now plays in Metallica. He had just recently left Suicidal Tendencies and came on with Ozzy. He comes off, and then Sharon comes up and she's like, "Okay, step back, don't move." And Ozzy comes down the steps, and I'm like 2 feet away from Ozzy. And I said, look at him, and I say, "Good show." And he turns and he looks at me and just moves on. And that's all I needed. I didn't, when I was talking about the autograph thing before, I wasn't gonna, "Oh no," I just wanted an acknowledgement, and a smile and a nod was good enough for me. So 99, that's when Chuck Dunham from Alliance, Champaign heavy metal extraordinaire band, we did a couple shows with them earlier that year, over in Champaign. Years before that, we played at Mabel's. So I was able, with the Iron Maiden tribute band we played with. That was awesome, and with Hate Choir, another awesome band. But that's when I met Bill from Alliance and Chuck Dunham from Alliance, and we did a New Year's show like '98 with them, and then later on in the summer of '99 we did a show with Alliance at the Canopy Club. And Alliance had a thing with girls in cages. Like a lot of old heavy metal bands used to do that. They put girls in cages above on top of the stacks. I'm like, I worked at a strip club then as a DJ. What a fucking horrible job that was. Not. So I'm a strip club DJ. I'm like, fuck that, man. If they're gonna have girls in cages, I'm gonna bring girls on stage. So I got 2 strippers to come out on stage. You know, they're wearing their lingerie and got whips and stuff. And they like had me down on the ground and they're like riding me and shit. It was fucking hilarious. But Bill, after the singer got fucking pissed because I did that. He goes, I'm like, what? Gary came up, he's like, Bill's pissed. I'm like, why? Because you upstaged him, man. I'm like, we're not getting paid tonight anyway, so I might as well have fun. So we had fun. And then shortly after that, Chuck called us, and he wanted Chuck Dunham, who's an amazing guitarist, first of all. Like, way better than our whole band, I thought. You know, it's like, he called, hey man, I want to come up and jam with you guys. I'm like, why do you want to come jam with us? You know, we're nobody special. He's like, no, dude, you guys got it going on. You know, he's like, when we come up, I got some ideas. So he came up, and his first show with us is when we played with Alice Cooper in Phoenix. And then shortly after that, Shason got married. Chuck and I became the main guitar players. Me, Chuck, and Kenny there doing that. I was working at the radio station at the time, and they did a movie. It was a B horror film called Night of the Living Zombies. It was total. It was they got a bunch of sponsors. It was a deal, you know, get people to local sponsors to do the thing, and ISU film students did put the film together. And then Master Fister ended up doing the soundtrack. Bands that we played with through those years that Master Fister played with through our inception until the end. Taxi War Dance, Mudvayne, Spine, Typhoid Mary, Brain Chiggers, Abnormal, Crop Circle. And I'll tell you something else. First time Mudvayne plays. Everybody's got a Mudvayne story, you know. But when bands played here, when pure bands played here, it was always, you know, and in the beginning when they'd come over, we were swapping shows. We would swap shows. We'd go play Peoria, you know. You get us a gig in Peoria, get you a gig here, you know. Like that brotherhood that we all had of doing that, and I've always prided myself on bringing new talent into a new area, you know, helping my people out like who's helped me before, like, you know, guys from bands I grew up with that gave me a shot at getting up and singing with them, you know, like playing with the Accomplice at a party, getting up. Rick pulled me up, hey man, I'm leaving, just here, sing this last song for me. I got up to sing rock and roll, you know. But anyway, so when we played with Mudvayne for the first time, I'll never forget it. Chad come up I had this booth that I used to sit in at the club that we played at, the Club Edge, and he came up to me after they were done, and he said, hey man, I just wanted to thank you, and came up to offer our respects, man, for bringing us over here, play with you guys. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. That's what, you know, we do, you know. And I always thought that was really cool after they made it and everything. I remember that story of him coming up and offering me, his respects for, bringing him over to play a show with him. And years later, they're opening for Black Label Society and Megadeth here at the arena, right over the bridge from that very club, which was the first club that they played at. And Chad is signing autographs with, it was Hell Yeah that was there. And Vinny, Paul was at the table. Vinny had just walked away and Chad was wrapping things up. He was talking to some people, had his head down. And I stood there and waited for the people to move that was in front of me, and I was just standing there with my head down. And he looks up. He's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, dude, it's Matt from Master Fister." And he's like, "Whoa, dude, what's up?" I'm like, "I just wanted to come over and say hi. I know you're busy. I just wanted to come over and say hey." So that was cool. That the first place they played was just right over the bridge. The next time I'd seen them, they'd be playing at the arena. So it was kind of cool. So I called Matt Hewitt and asked him if he wanted to start Ozzy Osbourne tribute band, and he said, "Hell yeah, dude, let's do it." And I'm like, "What are we gonna call ourselves?" I'm like, we went through a bunch of names, and one of my favorite songs of all time, of Ozzy tunes of all time, is "Killer of Giants" off the Ultimate Sin album, which the Ultimate Sin was going to be called Killer of Giants. A little bit of Ozzy trivia out there for you guys who didn't know that. Anyway, so then, we had a guitar player. I needed a drummer. Matt said, "Let me work on that." He got Wes Pollock. Used to play in E12. And this was actually, Wes said it was the first cover band that he'd ever played in. He'd always only played in an original band. Wes knew a guy named Ben Gibson, and he was a really great guy, and he stepped up and did it, and a great fucking musician. Mark Hilton stepped up and said he played in Knucklehead, and I forgot to mention them guys earlier, Jeff Mosier and those guys. So Hilton came on, and we started Killer of Giants. We did our first show at Foodstock, 2014. It was a little benefit from the food pantries, and had us and Cemetery Gates and a bunch of other bands. Cemetery Gates, of course, with Rick and Scotty and Buddy Jackson, my drummer now, and with the Killer Giants now. A bunch of great guys helped us get this thing started, and then we did our second show at the Castle Theater, then with Cemetery Gates and Killer Giants. Still writing my own stuff. Me and Scott McCullen from Cemetery Gates, we did a song called "Time Waits for No One" in 2015, which is a fucking brutal fucking song. I loved every minute of that. It's a great song. And KOG played a few more shows, and then we hooked up with my friend Ed from Regent Entertainment. We did a bunch of tribute acts in the Chicago area, Indiana area, and we hooked up with them, and they were doing a show at the House of Blues, and they were going to do a tribute to Ozfest there, and the regular Ozzy band that was supposed to headline that night pulled off for the bill, said they weren't going to do it. And so Ed called us, Matt and Ed had been talking for a while about hooking up and doing shows, and they asked us, "You guys want to come play the House of Blues tribute to Ozfest?" We're like, yeah, fucking House of Blues. So we went and did that show, which was fucking mind-blowing to me because I'd never been around all these great tribute acts that were on the bill that night. Recently, we had another member change. Back in 2019, Matt left, and Eric came in for a little bit, and I stalked E12 for like 3 years, trying to get him. He was playing with the Musical Prostitutes, and I got Tony Bryson to come over and play bass with us. He's so fun to play with, and such a great guy. We all just, between me, him, and Wes, and Ben, we would just be in fucking tears all the time, you know. They're just fun to be around, and great players. We had Tony and Eric and Wes and Ben, and then Wes and Tony decided they were doing playing more shows with the mixtape thing, and so I had put together a B team that had Eric's son, and I brought in Vinny, my son, who started playing shows with us when he was 10 years old, playing bass. I'd get him up to play like one song or something with us, and so he did like 2-3 times at the Castle, starting from when he was 10, and his last show before all that was at the Monarch in Peoria when we played over there. So by the time he's 12, he's like played all these huge clubs, you know, all over the place. You know, he's a little spoiled, you know. But I made him earn that. He didn't get that spot just because I'm his dad. I told him the first day we went to band practice with the guys, I said, I could tell you can get up and play all day long, but if the guys don't think that you can, you know, do it, then they're going to break your heart. So what we got to do is we got to put big boy pants on, and you got to walk in that practice room and you got to kick those guys in the nuts and show them who you are. I mean, you're only playing Paranoid, but, you know, hey, if you can't play it, then if they don't like it, you know, you're going to break your heart. He said, okay, Dad, I'm going to do that. And we walked in there and we played that song once. And the boys were like, yep, you can do it. And I'm like, he made me so proud that day. Totally blew my mind, because I thought, man, I was kind of worried at first because Hunter had never played in a band before. And I thought maybe, you know, once he got out there on the big stage, that I was, you know, walking on needles, man. I'm like, man, please. And everything worked out, and he did a great job. I think Benny, knowing most of the songs already, helped him out a lot. And Benny had helped Buddy, too, learn all these songs, too. All the three of them together just gelled so well. And they're doing such a phenomenal job up until this point. We've been playing last year. We did over 20 shows with them guys. So they're just a great bunch of guys. And I'm so happy for me helping them put them on their musical journey as somebody put me on mine. It's one that they can decide to get off of that path, but you know, that's up to them. But I've done my part in helping spread the musical journey to somebody else like I did, you know. So everybody, I want to thank, like Dion and Mary from Explicit Photos, who've done all these great photos over the last 2 years of Killer Johnson, who been photos for lots of bands. And, they're good friends of ours, and I really want to thank them for everything that they've done for the Killer Johnson family. Tom and Shelly Vito for being our road crew on top of, you know, making sure Hunter gets to the shows. You know, Joni over here for being the road manager and helping us get to the show. You know, most of all, my family, my brothers, all the guys that have helped me, with the shows, with music, help promote the band, get things in, run the security at some shows, you know, and most of all, I wouldn't be here talking about this if it wasn't for Vinny. He's everything to me. So, and he's kept me going, and I do it for him and to show him, you know, you can do this, man. I told him since he was a little kid, once he started asking, you can do this and you can be as good as you want to be, as long as you hit it and you put the work in and you do it. So I think, he's been my saving grace, and I want to thank him. So, and I want to thank Kenny for doing this too, because these things are great. Because sometimes a few years ago, when we're not around, our family can kind of make sense of what our life had been about that they didn't know nothing about. Because a lot of our family don't know what we do or what we go through, or the shit we do, So this is a pretty cool thing, man. I thank you. Thanks a lot for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.